This lesson is on masking, the ability to reveal parts of an image and conceal parts of an image. In Flash, it's generally used as a transition, a swiping effect to remove information or to reveal information. So that's kind of what I'm going to show you. Taking a look here, if we just swipe, if we just scrub our timeline, you'll notice that one of these objects is being removed or masked out, and one of them was being revealed, okay? They're going in the opposite direction, so one starts out as visible and then the other one slowly reveals. So these are two different ways you can look at it, okay? Now we're going to go ahead and turn these off here. I'm just going to work with these two down here. We're going to look at these. This is basically going from not being there to being revealed. And this top one up here, turn these off, is basically working with being there and then being slowly hidden, okay? So these are your basic masks for swiping, and I'm just using, the way this is built is I'm just using a shape that's in the form of a rectangle to cover up the information or to reveal the information, okay? And just so that you get a sense of how these are built, I'm going to go ahead and turn these on. You'll see these, how they're happening, and then I'll let you look at how it's done before the mask is applied. All it is I'm going to turn on these layers here. It's basically, if we look at this portion here, it's basically here where it starts covered up, it actually means that it's being revealed. So like this is the start position. When you cover up something, an object with a shape that you're going to then grow and turn into a mask, when it's covered up, it actually means that it's visible. So you got to kind of think in reverse. And when it's not covered up to begin with, and then it becomes covered up, then it's going to appear. So just so you get a better sense, I'm going to scrub because I know that can get complicated in just listening. Notice what is happening visually here, how this is being revealed, but actually it's disappearing, and how this is actually covering it up, but yet it's appearing in the reverse as you do it as a mask, okay? So that's basically what they look like, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and go into my making these from scratch so that you get a better sense of what is happening, okay? So I'm in this file, I'm going to do this from scratch, okay? What I do have already made, and I'm not going to start them all over, is I do have a symbol for my mask object, the box. I could use a circle, it doesn't matter. You can try whatever you want. I'm going to be using the box, okay? And I do have my robot dancing, okay? My nested symbol that has that movement in it. That's the one that we used in the example, all right? So what I would want to do is I would want to create a layer for the object that I want to mask. So I'm just going to call it robot. Okay. And then I would want to drag the robot into that particular layer. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I've created the robot layer. I'm going to create a new layer. And this one is going to be for the mask, which is in this case is the rectangle mask. Okay. All right. I'm going to grow this here so you can see it. Okay. Now I'm going to grab my rectangle mask here, this masking box, and I'm just going to drag it on here, okay? Now currently it's a little small relative to this size, so I could either decrease the size of this one or increase the size of this one. You want to kind of set that up ahead of time, so I'm going to go ahead and just scale this up here in the stage, okay? All right, there we go. Now this is all before we start. Now all I need to do is I need to add a motion tween to this one. That's going to allow me to grow the box and cover it up. And I'm not going to create a motion tween on this one. I'm just going to let it stay stationary in the space, and it's just going to be visible for a longer period of time, okay? So I'm going to choose the amount of seconds it's going to take. I'm going to say 36 frames, 3 seconds. I'm going to right-click on this one. This is for the robot, and I'm just going to insert frames, and all it's going to do is it's going to allow it to be visible during that time, okay? Now for this box, I'm going to not only insert a frame to extend the period of time that is visible, so both of them are visible for that length of time. I'm also going to add anywhere on the timeline, it doesn't matter, you just have to click anywhere on the timeline for that particular layer and right click, and I'm going to create a motion tween, okay? Now on this motion tween, basically I need to tell it how it is that I want it to affect this, so I'm going to actually make this grow and cover this up, okay? So what I'm going to do is at the very end keyframe here, I'm going to grab my transform tool, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to change my center point here. This is the pivot point from which it's going to extend from, so I'm going to move it like this, okay? The only way to get that option is if you're on your transform tool, okay? So once it's covered up, you'll get this kind of effect. The next step, the last step, is to right click and to select mask, okay? And what it'll do is it'll automatically lock your layers. It'll click this little pencil drawing where you can't affect it. Now when you scrub the timeline, you'll see what's happening, okay? Notice when I started off, the object was visible to me, okay? So before this was on, the object was visible to me here, and my mask object was off to the side, the one that I'm going to use as my masking tool, okay? So when, I'm going to lock this back up, turn it back into a mask. So as the object started covering it up, when it was still red before I applied the mask, this object was actually not visible in the mask, okay? So you just got to kind of consider. It's kind of hard to think in that backward state. The only thing I could suggest is that you test it out. If it's not doing what you want it to do, then you want to do the opposite technique. Then start off with the object covered up. I'm just going to go ahead and unlock this layer. I'm going to actually right-click it, and I'm going to undo the mask, okay? I just right-clicked it, and I clicked on mask again, and it undoes it, okay? So if this isn't working for you, then what you want to do is you want to start with the opposite. You want to start here. Okay, you don't have to redo the making it a motion tween. You can start with it created and covered up, okay? And then when you go to the end here, instead of growing at the very end point, you can shrink it where it comes off the page, okay? So then it's going from starting to shrinking, okay? Now it's going to reveal in the opposite direction. We'll just go ahead and test that out. Mask. Notice now it's going to reveal in that opposite direction the way that your shape was removed. If you want it to go the opposite way, I'm going to unlock it. I'm going to right click, I'm going to unmask it, and then I'm just going to modify it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this point to here. And instead what I'm going to do is do it this way. Okay, just by changing that pivot point, it'll automatically switch it to the other direction because your transformation is happening relative to that point. Okay, notice if I go this way, it's going to do the opposite. Okay, so you just need to position it based on what you want it to do. You either start with it uncovered or you start with it covered. It really just depends on what it is that you want it to do. Okay, there's a practice file in here. You can just go ahead and continue from where we're at. I've already created the layers for you to emulate the example, and I've placed the robots dancing in place for you on a layer. Now what you want to practice with is adding your masking box to the layer and then either trying to make it reveal or hide something, okay? So you'd first have to create the animation of the box, either covering it up or revealing the actual object, and then create it into a mask by right-clicking and applying the mask, turning it into an actual mask, okay? So you'd do that for both of these, your goal being to try to match what's on the mask example, which is here, okay? And you'd always have this mask example to take a look at kind of how things are organized and get a sense for how you would create the mask on your own. All right, this concludes your lesson on masking. If you have any questions, make sure to contact me.